Alright, now we're back for the part 2 of Andrew Jackson, and we're starting to get into the most interesting bits of it. Now, the election of 1824 is where Jackson is going to really step on that national stage in politics for the first time. He's been a representative for 1 year for the state of Tennessee, and he's been the senator for Tennessee for 2 years in 2 different years. Separated by some time. So now this is his shot. Now he's very popular in the South. He's very popular with those who are poor and kind of the middle class. He's very popular with plantation owners. He's going to be seen as a states' rights candidate. He's going to be seen as somebody who is going to definitely stand up for the protection of the institution of slavery for the South as well. Now, in this election, it's still part of, it's the end of the era of good feelings. The way this election will end will rip apart the Democrat-Republican Party. Since 1816, we've only had one political party in the United States. We've had a lot of political discussions that have been between different regions of the country, but we're all still one political party, which is also going to make it a little more interesting as far as the politics goes. In this election, we're going to have 4 major candidates. Jackson, over here, from Tennessee. We're going to have Henry Clay, kind of Jackson's western counterpart. Both of these guys are representing the territory west of the Appalachian Mountains, which is something new. Not as many people are living out there. More people are moving out there every day, though. Right? And he's kind of faced off with Clay in the past. They don't necessarily see eye to eye. Clay is much more envisioning an industrial future for the United States. He's really big on internal improvements, meaning roads, turnpikes, canals, lighthouses, all those things that are going to get industry running. Jackson's much more in line with Thomas Jefferson. Farms, farms, farms. You have William Crawford over here. Now, going back to Clay. Clay is the sitting Speaker of the House. He's been in that position. He's actually relatively new to the position of Speaker of the House, but he's been in the House of Representatives for a while. William Crawford over here, he has been he's been in the Senate before. He's been the President pro tem of the Senate. Kind of like the Speaker of the House in the House of Representatives. He's had the other position in the Senate. But more widely known, he has been a Secretary of War and Secretary of Treasury during the Monroe and Madison presidencies. And then lastly, you have John Quincy Adams over here, probably one of the most well-known candidates out of this group. He's a masterful Secretary of State under James Monroe. So these are 4 very strong candidates going into the race. Each of them has their own set of experiences and accomplishments. Jackson has had the least political experience of all these guys. His has been mainly military. Even though he has been in the House of Representatives, it is for 1 year. And he's been in the Senate twice, but for only 2 years total so far. So as far as governmental experience, he's kind of behind the other ones, but he makes up for it in charisma and that connection to that middle class, lower class. So these are the results of the election of 1824. If you're taking a look at them with me, you got the pink here, John Quincy Adams. Andrew Jackson's in the green. You got William Crawford in the blue, and then you have Henry Clay in the orange, and it looks nothing like an electoral map we see today. Usually you have 2 candidates, you have the red states, you have the blue states. The electoral map doesn't change that much from 1 year to the next. This looks like chaos, and it really is, but we can see some trends. Now, North Carolina and South Carolina are going to vote for Jackson, still claiming him as a native son. Tennessee, obviously. And a lot of the western west of the Appalachian Mountains are as well. He is not going to capture Kentucky, Ohio, Missouri. You're going to go for Clay. Crawford is going to split his support from the mid-Atlantic and then down in Georgia. Crawford's from Georgia. Makes kind of sense. And then John Quincy Adams has his support mainly in the Northeast, in the Yankee Land area. Right. So who wins? Well, let's take a look at the popular vote. Popular vote, Jackson is way ahead, 153,544 votes, meaning 43% of the people of the United States voted for him. The next closest is going to be John Quincy Adams, 108,000 and some change. But that doesn't matter. The electoral vote matters. And that's going to mean that Jackson still is winning 99 electoral votes to 84 electoral votes to 41 electoral votes to 37 electoral votes. He's gotten a plurality, meaning he's gotten the most of all available candidates. He has not gotten the majority of the votes. He doesn't. Now, according to taking a look at this, who wins the election of 1824? It's obvious. Hey, who has a better claim to the presidency than Andrew Jackson? He's won the popular vote. He's won the electoral vote. Let's go ahead and crown him. All right, President Andrew Jackson. Hold up. We've got Amendment 12. Amendment 12 says that a candidate must have a majority of the electoral votes, and if a majority is not reached, the election goes immediately into the House of Representatives, in which each state gets one vote. Well, let's go take a look at that part of the process. But before we do, think of what is the best job that you have to set yourself up for the presidency. Right? What job is going to have a particular set of skills that a president who has to focus on issues beyond America's shores may set him up for? A lot of people think it's vice president, but we actually have very few vice presidents who become presidents, especially in the early republic. Right? Maybe Speaker of the House. We definitely have somebody that fits that bill. Henry Clay's raising his hand. Hey, guys, Speaker of the House here. Make me president. Right. President pro tempore? Yeah. Secretary of War? Could work. You definitely need to know about the military. Secretary of Treasury, another good claim to fame. Crawford's got both of those. Yeah, let's do this. I've got the experience with the money, and I know how to run the army. But more often than not, what we've seen in the early republic is it's actually the Secretary of State, and it makes sense. Secretary of State, you have to negotiate with other countries. You have to leave America's shores, you have to go to Britain, you have to work out treaties with them, you have to go to France, you have to go to Russia. What we've seen, Washington's Secretary of State was Jefferson. Jefferson's Secretary of State was Madison. Madison becomes president, his Secretary of State was Monroe. Monroe became president, his Secretary of State was John Quincy Adams. So if you wanted to be president in 8 years, you needed to gain the favor of the current president and become the Secretary of State. People trusted that you would become a really good president. Well, let's take a look at the election 1824 again. So since we haven't gotten a majority, Andrew Jackson's sitting there, he's salivating, he's waiting to become president, but he is just so short of getting that majority, and he can't. So we go to the House election now. The House election, the rules change. We can't take all 4 to the House election, so we're going to take the top 3 candidates, which means Henry Clay over here, bless his little heart, he is not going to be in the running anymore. But don't feel too sorry for him. He's going to impact this election more than anybody else. Each state is going to get 1 vote. 1 and only 1 vote. Now behind the scenes, Clay over here, right, he's the Speaker of the House. He can no longer become president. But being Speaker of the House means that you have the trust of the House of Representatives. They value your judgment. They value your decisions. So even though he's going to hate Jackson and Adams, he gets to play kingmaker. He gets to decide who is going to become president. And this is where the idea of a corrupt bargain happens. Because he's going to throw his support behind John Quincy Adams. Then later, John Quincy Adams is going to make him Secretary of the State. Now, this in and of itself isn't a corrupt bargain. Because Henry Clay is more than capable of being a good Secretary of State. We're not knocking him. But it's kind of odd that out of everybody he could have chosen to be Secretary of State, Adams is going to choose Clay. Knowing, let's go back up there and take a look at what we know about the Secretary of State position. The claim is going to be that Clay knows in 8 years, John Quincy Adams has just cleared the path for him to replace John Quincy Adams, and it will become President Henry Clay in the election of 1832. That doesn't sit right with a lot of people, thinking that maybe Henry Clay has just thwarted the will of the people. Now, the 1825 election is an awesome election if you don't like the people of the United States deciding who their president is going to be. Because remember, Andrew Jackson not only won the popular vote, but he was leading the electoral vote. And he will not become president. 50,000 more people voted for him than Adams, and he's still going to lose. But Jackson is going to do something very, very good. He's going to spend the next 4 years hammering home that Adams has had a corrupt bargain. Now, this doesn't necessarily come from Jackson's mouth, it's more of his supporters' mouth. But that there was a corrupt bargain. You should be outraged at this. The democracy is dying in America because of these backdoor deals with these highfalutin rich guys trying to figure out who's going to be president in 8 years. At the same time, voting regulations around the nation are dropping. The amount of wealth, the amount of land you have to have, the amount of wealth you have to vote drops, which means more voters who like Jackson. All right. So this is the math of the corrupt bargain. You got 4 candidates. None of them can get an electoral majority. So we're going to add a House election in there. We're going to delete Clay from the election, but we're going to add Clay's support for Adams. It's going to end in a president of John Quincy Adams plus the Secretary of State Clay, which is going to mean possibly in 8 years it's going to be President Clay, which means the corrupt bargain. And most people who supported Jackson were livid at this. How could you? All right. So going that next 4 years, we're building up to the election of 1828. It's going to be a rematch between Adams and Jackson. Adams supporters have now kind of created the National Republican or the Whig Party. Jackson's got the Democratic Party. There's going to be big issues as far as a tariff, as far as the common people have a vote or a voice in this nation. They're getting more vote. They're getting more enfranchisement. Jackson's marriage is actually going to be a big topic. What happened with his marriage is that Jackson married Rachel Donaldson, who had been married previously. Her husband essentially left, and because he left, she is going to marry Jackson. She thought her husband was dead. He wasn't dead. He came back, said Rachel was his wife. Jackson and Rachel are now bigamists. They're breaking a law of being married, but what they're going to do is they're going to say, according to Tennessee, you essentially abandoned your wife. You're no longer married to her, so I can come in and I can marry her. But they're going to have to fight off those rumors of bigamy, and they're really hammering Rachel Jackson bad for this decision. And the other big thing is people are going to kind of claim that Jackson may not be the most stable guy as president. I mean, really his biggest claim to fame is to kill British people, to kill Indians. All right. yeah, the presidency might be a little bit more complicated than that, so they're a little bit concerned. Now, 1828, the election is actually a landslide for Jackson. The electoral vote, it's almost 70% of the electoral vote. The popular vote's a little bit closer, but he is comfortably becoming president of the United States, and we're going to have the inauguration. But this is a very sad time in the life of Andrew Jackson. As he's winning the presidency, Rachel is going to die of a heart attack. Jackson and a lot of people are going to describe that heart attack as being caused by all those personal attacks during the election. Now, whether they were or not is neither here nor there. Right? Stress can cause those issues. But Jackson takes it as a front. He essentially says, God may forgive those who attacked Rachel, but I will not. He is livid. I mean, of course he's going to be livid, but he's not going to let those kind of feelings pass. But on Inauguration Day, it's going to be a change. It's a new garden town. We're not going to have these stuffy celebrations anymore with the black ties and everything. Jackson is actually going to open his inauguration up to the public, which means 21,000 people are going to show up. So many that they're going to crush into the White House and chase him from his own place. He has to leave. There's a fear for his safety that there's too many people in the house. They actually draw the crowd out of the White House by taking the punch bowls that were laced with whiskey and taking them out on the front lawn, and then the party kind of continues on the front lawn. Now, there is this story about a 14,000-pound block of cheese, or 1,400-pound block of cheese that was given to Jackson. That's not his inauguration. That's actually going to be closer to the end of his presidency. And he's, again, going to have a large party. Everybody's going to come by, get you a hunk of cheese, and eat it. And they say the smell lingered around the White House for a couple of years of all that cheese. Now, before we get in this, this is a good time to break. Another 17 minutes. Now, this is taking a little bit longer than I thought, but Jackson's an interesting character. So we're going to stop it here, and then we're going to try to cover all of the policies of Jackson in the next video.